you ultimately having a clear understanding that God is ultimately the heights of the Father and the heights of the Mother is one, which is God. God is ultimately not the Father. God is ultimately not the Mother. God is the Mother and the Father is one. Chapter 9, verse 17, Bhagavad Gita. This is why ultimately the Father and the Mother has came as one, as Sri Krishna, as God, to show the path of moksha and Kali Yuga through the Bhagavad Gita, through the fifth Veda that was spoke on through the heights of the Father and the Mother. Namaste Ashe. It is only the heights of the Father and the Mother who has the knowledge of the fifth Veda, which is God. Namaste Ashe. Gita, the Bhagavad Gita, predating the Quran, predating the Bible, predating the Old Testament, the true book of God, the first true book of God. Namaste Ashe. All of these other so-called books of God even copied the concept of the Bhagavad Gita in the first place to create the Quran and Bible. Having a clear understanding that the Quran and the Bible having Genesis stories of how the earth, of how the planet was created, when these books of so-called God came about billions and billions of years after so much has already happened on the planet. Namaste Ashe, letting you know that these religions are dark age religions. Namaste Ashe, the Bhagavad Gita being spoke before the dark ages began. Having a clear understanding that everything that happens in the dark ages is of Kali Purush. Namaste Ashe, simply understanding that everything that's happening on the planet right now is because of the destiny of Kali Yuga. Everything that's dealing with Iran, everything that's dealing with the wars, everything that's so-called dealing with the Epstein files, even the things that's coming about of World War III. This is all ultimately Kali Yuga. We are in the dark ages. You having knowledge, you having gyan that you are in the dark ages. You are not affected or afflicted by what's happening in the dark ages. Namaste Ashe, you having a concept of understanding that we are in Kali Yuga and that the Gita is the only way to traverse through the dark ages. The only time when God has came, manifested a physicality. The only time when God has came, manifested a physicality of the human body to show the path of the human body itself to traverse through Kali Yuga. Namaste Ashe, not only to show the human body how to traverse through Kali Yuga, but to show how the Atma, how the Jiva should traverse through Kali Yuga. This is what ultimately the Bhagavad Gita is for. The Bhagavad Gita is knowledge of the fifth Veda. The Bhagavad Gita is when God came down itself to speak of the fifth Veda. Namaste Ashe. This is what ultimately the Bhagavad Gita is, when the heights of the Mother and the Father is manifested as God to speak on the fifth Veda, to show you the path of moksha and Kali Yuga. Namaste Ashe. All the four heads of Brahma, all the four paths of Brahma, the other four Vedas, those four Vedas can only give you true enlightenment. Those four Vedas can only give you true information. Those four Vedas can only give you a way to traverse through Satya Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, Treta Yuga. Namaste Ashe. The Bhagavad Gita is for what? Kali Yuga. Namaste Ashe. This is why ultimately the Bhagavad Gita is more known and popular than the Vedas itself. Why is the Bhagavad Gita more known and popular than the four Vedas of Brahma? Because this is the Veda, this is the Bhagavad Gita that helps you traverse through the Kali Yuga. Not only help you mentally traverse through the Kali Yuga, but help you physically traverse through the Kali Yuga. That's why ultimately the Bhagavad Gita is about the greatest war, because in Kali Yuga ultimately you're always going through war. Not just with thyself, but the ones outside of thyself. Namaste Ashe. You are going through war internally and externally in Kali Yuga. This is why ultimately the Bhagavad Gita is the true book of God. Simply understanding that the Bhagavad Gita that came about before the Bible, the Bhagavad Gita that came about before the Quran, the Bhagavad Gita that came about before the Old Testament, even the Dead Sea Scrolls, there lies the Bhagavad Gita. All of these corrupt religions came about after 3100 BCE, after Sri Krishna, God has transcended from the physical avatar that God has incarnated into. Namaste Ashe. This is